The following program has been pre-recorded for broadcast at this time on WABC, New York. Remember, this program was pre-recorded, so please do not attempt to call our regular phone numbers, the 800 numbers, or the 900 poll numbers at this time.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and conversationalists all across the fruited plain. This is point number 773 of George Bush's 1,000 Points of Light, Rush Limbaugh. And like the president, it is not time to gloat. It's hard not to gloat, but it's time not to. In fact, it's difficult to know how to begin, and not so much how to begin today, but where. Have you ever felt so compelled to say things, so many things that you want to say that you get tongue-tied and you feel you're going to run out of time, so you want to go lickety-split through the whole, this is how I feel today. But note how composed I am. Note how I'm not talking as though I'm racing through the barnyard with Colonel Sanders after me. Now, I've thought about this, and I still haven't figured out where the best place to begin would be, so I'll just let it flow. Let it flow, let it flow. But first I must say that the views expressed by the host on this show are not necessarily those of the staff management nor sponsors of this station, but in time they will be. One of the first impressions I have last night, I was at dinner. Stu Crane and John Axton, EIB corporate executives, as we are planning our extremely rosy future. And clock struck 9 o'clock. And all of a sudden, we were at Elaine's celebrity hangout. And I must say, I don't want to make anybody at Elaine's mad, because I like Elaine. Don't misunderstand this, anybody. But the celebrity crowd that frequents Elaine's would not be considered the leading conservatives of the nation or of the city. I'm probably alone in that category while in there. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, I am politically incorrect at Elaine's, but I still go anyway because I like it. In fact, Elaine's is the place. I was minding my own business one night, and Terry Garr walked in and spotted me and just stared at me, glared, I should say, with this semi-angry look on her face, and then walked on. Didn't say a word. We were in the midst of dinner, and all of a sudden, they had a hockey game on TV. All of a sudden, they turned the hockey game off, and here came the president. The place went silent. Not one adult beverage was served. Not one meal was brought from the kitchen. Not one plate was cleared. Dead silence when the president spoke. Half of Elaine's, at the conclusion, erupted into a standing ovation. I'm telling you, folks, it was just, it's one of those things. Where were you when the president announced, in effect, that the thing was over? Then the second thing, I went home. Got home late, and I spent some time on the phone. I did not turn the TV on for the first time all night until about midnight. And so I was not totally up to speed. No, it was before midnight, because I got in enough to see Nightline. I saw a little of Nightline. And this is something that I want to point out. I don't want you to ever forget this, as to why wars are fought. It was the Forrest Sawyer piece, live from Kuwait City. He had a taped package. During this taped package, he was embraced by recently freed Kuwaiti people. They were in tears. They were hugging an infidel. They were hugging a white man. They said it would never happen. I've also put together a list of war myths that I'll share with you in a moment. And they were saying to Forrest Sawyer, one man in particular, I'm free. I'm free. I'm free. I have my freedom. And these people were all saying the same thing. I'm free. I'm free. And embracing Forrest Sawyer and kissing him on the cheek. I'm free. Note, my friends, they were not saying, I have peace. I have peace. Wars are fought for freedom. Wars are not fought for peace. Do not let anyone tell you that war is fought for peace. War is fought for freedom. Here is a list of war myths, and feel free to contribute to this if you wish. These are as many as I could think of. I just decided to do this 10 minutes before the broadcast began today. Remember all of the reasons we shouldn't have been there, all the things that they said would happen. They were all bad, from Mark Shields of the Washington Post to all of the military experts and analysts that Ted Koppel featured night after night, to the peace protesters, to half of the U.S. Congress. By the way, I spoke to Arnaud de Bourgrave of the Washington Times only moments before this program, who steered me over to Todd Lindbergh at Insight Magazine. They are faxing to us this afternoon a record of those votes in the House and Senate on the authorization for the use of force in the Saudi theater. You know that it was a very close vote in both, well, actually closer in the Senate than it was in the House. And we will, we're going to remind you over the course of the coming months who voted what, how they voted, and how they behaved after their vote. But here are some war myths. Our soldiers were unqualified middle-class volunteers, and that wasn't fair. The sons and daughters of the rich weren't there, and that wasn't fair. This was a racially imbalanced force, therefore it was immoral. The percentage of minorities was way too high compared to the percentage of population. Kuwait isn't a democracy, so why should we be there in the first place? A volunteer army is only a peacetime army. We need to reinstate the draft if we're serious about a war. Our weapons wouldn't work. Remember that? Sand would destroy our tanks and our Apache helicopters. They said the Apache wouldn't work. The Apache failure rate was 1 in 2. It wouldn't work. George Bush just wanted to get the oil price up. That's all he wanted, so that he could enrich his personal fortune along with the personal fortunes of his friends. I would like to point out the gasoline price is below what it was on August 2nd of last year. If you take out the federal gasoline tax keeps it a little bit above the August 2nd, 1990 level. Then there were those who said, let sanctions work for a year. At least a year. Meanwhile, the Soviets were sending weapons in, the Jordanians were sending weapons in, and our troops would still be hunkered down or bunkered down or what have you, with the heat of summer coming, with the sandstorms coming. Instead, now it's over. There would be thousands and thousands and thousands of casualties. The Iraqi army was vastly superior to ours. It was more committed. The men and the women of the Iraqi army willing to commit suicide, so committed were they. The jihad would force us into a battle we couldn't hopelessly compete with. The coalition would not hold together. Iran might come into the war on the side of Iraq. The Arab coalition members wouldn't really do any actual fighting. We were there going to be on the front lines. No, the Arab coalition members, they wouldn't do anything. We would be bearing the brunt of this. Israel would not fall into place. Israel would botch it. They'd enter the war at the first sign of lead heading their way. All of this was said. America would bear the full expense of the war. In truth, my friends, the final cost of the war has been tabbed now at about $45 billion, and the entire price will be met by coalition partners. The total amounts pledged by coalition partners exceeds the $45 billion cost. It will not take one taxpayer dollar to pay for this war. It will not have cost us a dime. Thousands and thousands of body bags would be returning. American will would crumble. The first sign of American tragedy. Remember that? Body bags, body bags. Sam Donaldson, Sam Body Bags Donaldson. Body bags, body bags. The Tet Offensive at Khafji. Oh, yes, that was going to be when the American will cracked. We weren't prepared for 10,000 casualties. Saddam Hussein, at the rate he is able to cause casualties, would have to stay at this war about 20 years. To cause 10,000 and if he had caused 10,000 casualties, Instead of going, oh no, we've got to leave, the American people would have been angrier than they even were and would have authorized the use of even more powerful force. Massive peace protests would break out all over the country. But there's one thing, my friends, which stands out in my mind above all others in the political arena. And that is St. Louis Congressman Richard Gephardt, who threatened to withhold funds from our troops. Do you remember this? If the president insisted on sending a greater deployment after November, when the Iraqis sent reinforcements in and Bush said, uh-oh, our defensive positions won't work because if they attack us, we're in trouble. We've got to send more people in. Gephardt threatened impeachment, threatened to withhold funds from the troops. As far as this program is concerned, it will do whatever it can to see to it that the people of St. Louis, in his district, and the people of America never forget that Richard Gephardt, who is the House Majority Whip, threatened to withhold funds. Threatened to try. He couldn't have done it, but he clearly threatened to try to do it. Also, on the lighter side of things, ladies and gentlemen, the March issue of Washingtonian magazine, and not only that, I saw this in the paper the other day, Peter Annette, who is 56, has proposed to a young woman in her 20s, Kimberly Moore. She is in Jerusalem. She's a producer for CNN, and she is awaiting the end of Peter Annette's assignment in Baghdad. The only problem is he's not divorced from his North Vietnamese wife that he married during the North Vietnamese War, and so he's going to have to get divorced from her before he can marry this. War is hell. It really is. It's how this guy meets his wives. Now, I have tabulated the ratings in terms of how many prisoners have surrendered to which network. And as of now, ABC is leading. 34 Iraqis have surrendered to ABC. They have the highest rating. 20 Iraqi prisoners have surrendered to CBS. 17 surrendered to NBC. 16 surrendered to anybody they could find. And only 4 have surrendered to CNN. CNN's really on the bottom end here of the ratings as far as prisoners. Also, friend of an acquaintance of mine who I regularly receive communiques from on CompuServe, Timothy Wheeler, sent this note. Rush, as part of the last arms treaty with the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev has to destroy 40,000 tanks. This is not easy. After all, the things are built to resist destruction, and the Wall Street Journal did a funny story on this not very long ago, maybe last summer or so. Seems to me the current crisis offers 2 or 3 ways finally to solve this problem. One, we could call Gorbachev and say, hey, look, we could use additional target practice. Put those 40,000 somewhere in the desert, and we'll take care of them for you. We could sell those tanks to Saddam Hussein at full price, and then let him try this again. Or we could sell them to Hollywood for the mother of all film battles. And that may be what we want. We may want the 40,000 tanks for our miniseries, which leads me to another thing that I'll get to right after the break. You stay where you... Somebody has stolen the miniseries idea. Somebody's trying to cover the miniseries idea. Somebody's ripping me off out there, and I will not stand for this anymore. We'll be back in a moment. With half my brain tied behind my back, with happiness, pride, and joy that I find difficult to express, Rush Limbaugh and the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. I want to play for you a portion of the press conference. I wish I could play the whole thing again, General Schwarzkopf. This was, I heard Peter Jennings last night refer to it as a performance. You can call it a performance if you wish. I will stand with that. That's all right. But this was a man who was speaking, ladies and gentlemen, from his heart. And I want to play one particular cut from his briefing yesterday Those of you who attended the Rush to Excellence cruise in January, and those of you who have been fortunate enough to hear recent Rush to Excellence performances, I have on those occasions addressed, and I have very sketchily here, but in greater detail on stage, I have addressed the following question. What kind of people do you want in positions of authority which require on occasion sending men and women to their death? What kind of people do you need running that show? What kind of men and women do you need making decisions that subject young men and women to possible death in the field of battle? And I've raised two options to you. Do you want a man who is callous and cold-hearted and can look at it as nothing but statistics because it's something that must be done on occasion, and when it must be done, you need it done as quickly as possible, and the best way to get that done is by having someone who is unaffected emotionally by it? Or do you want someone whose gut is torn apart at the decision? Do you want somebody who loses sleep over the fact that he has to make the decision? Do you want somebody who is just repulsed by the decision that he must make? And I have always said you want the latter. The reason you want the latter, the reason you want military men who hate war, is because those are the men who will plan it in such a way as to end it the soonest and devise strategies that place at risk our troops the least. I want you to listen to Schwarzkopf addressing the casualty count yesterday.
The loss of one human life is intolerable to any of us who are in the military. But I would tell you that casualties of that order of magnitude, considering the job that's been done and the number of forces that are involved, is almost miraculous as far as the light number of casualties. It'll never be miraculous to the families of those people, but it is miraculous.
He was tearing up and choking with emotion when talking about the families that would have to deal with the loss of their loved ones. That is exactly what I meant when I raised the question, what kind of man do you want, or men, in those decision-making roles? You want compassionate, feeling, full of heart men. And we had them, fortunately, throughout the entire chain of command in this war. Now there's another thing. During the briefing yesterday, a question came from someone regarding a trip through a minefield. And General Schwarzkopf reacted tersely to it. I don't remember the specific question, but his specific answer was to lean down on the podium and glare at the reporter and say, "You ever been through a minefield?" There was a pause. "Well, no, I haven't." "A minefield with one mine in it is stress. A minefield with one mine in it is intense." Let me tell you about Norm Schwarzkopf's 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. He was thrown into the leadership of a battalion whose commanding officers, both of them, had been killed by land mines. He was brought in to calm a panicky bunch of men. In the process of leading them out of the minefield, this is in South Vietnam, process of leading them out, one of the soldiers stepped on a landmine and his left leg was blown totally off. Schwarzkopf went to get him, put him on his back, and took him out. During that process, another soldier hit a mine and was blown to bits. This happened within a period of about 10 minutes. Schwarzkopf saw it. And so the question yesterday at the minefield, and, well, why was it so risky when there was only one mine in the field, is he's been there. Everybody that has been involved in this had been there. That's why it went the way it did.
Woke up this morning with my heart on fire.
This is what I was looking for.
Held on to what I've been dreaming.
They said it was not findable.
Woke up this morning, I had one desire. To get back to what I've been seeing. Heaven, it was heaven. I have never known a bliss, witnessed anything like this. Glowing all
Bring it down a little bit here, Kiki and Telekorsky. This is Soul Sister, and this is what, I heard this And they finally found, we found it at Scotty's in Summit, New Jersey. They called us in yesterday. We got it. Actually, a woman named Ann Buckley found it. And this is just so infectious. Just a little bit of the chorus here, Keegan, and we'll move on to the program.
I keep on searching for the way to your heart. Try to believe it's getting better. Take me all the way to your heart.
Been listening to this all morning in my official Real Radio announcer's office. Now, I have one more cut from Norm Schwarzkopf that I want to play from his briefing yesterday. And if I could, as I say, I'd play a lot more than the two I've got here. This one, I wish to play to those of you who think that the United States is an imperialist, evil nation bent on conquering the world and spreading whatever evil that exists in this country around the world. Of course, that's gobbledygook and poppycock. And finally, the American people, I think, have had their fill of peace protesters. They've had their fill of war protesters. They have had their fill of these anti-America protest marches and burning of the flag and so forth. They've had their fill of it. They've had their fill of this country being criticized for being things that it's not. And Colonel or General Schwarzkopf addressed that with just one line, maybe two yesterday, while pointing out a fact on his chart.
Ladies and gentlemen, when we were here, we were 150 miles away from Baghdad, and there was nobody between us and Baghdad. If it had been our intention to take Iraq, if it had been our intention to destroy the country, if it had been our intention to overrun the country, we could have done it unopposed.
And we didn't, because that was never what we were to do. Now, I know that many of you are feeling extremely proud and thrilled today, and, well, you should. Because never in the history of human conflict has such a massive force as the Iraqi force been so overwhelmingly defeated with so few casualties in such a short period of time. A ground war that would go months with thousands of casualties. And you can say what you want in your efforts to try to take credit away from our forces here, but you won't get away with it. We set the Iraqi forces up for the defeat that was to be theirs. We pummeled them with our air power. We saw to it that they had no desire to fight for a cause that really did not exist. Such is the way religion can be used to manipulate people, but happily, in one regard, it did not work here in the case of Saddam Hussein. He was not able to mobilize any of his Muslim buddies around the world, not even able to mobilize his own troops. In fact, do you know that some of the Kuwaiti prisoners, some of the Iraqi prisoners that we have taken in Kuwait are saying they were under orders to use chemical weapons and didn't. They were under orders to use chemical weapons and didn't. If I might shift gears. By the way, the facts just came in. Thanks to Todd Lindbergh and Heidi Lamar at Insight Magazine for faxing us the results of both the House and Senate votes on those resolutions authorizing the use of force in Kuwait, in the Persian Gulf. I have it now. It will not leave my briefcase. And over the course of the next months, via this show, America will learn just who voted against these resolutions, and we will then compare their votes against their actions after the votes. Now, I was reading the New York Daily News this morning, which is the base publication. It's the home base for the columnist Liz Smith, who is a celebrity columnist. And she's in about 75 newspapers around the country. Some friends of mine in Sacramento and San Francisco faxed me the same column from the San Francisco paper in which she appears today. I read from the Liz Smith, and I tried calling the Liz Smith column today and told whoever answered the phone over there that I would like to talk to Liz to say that I'm already up and running on this myself. You know, I'll send it in writing. It's hard to carry this stuff down on the phone. They weren't eager to talk to me. So I don't know if I'm going to send it over there or not. This column is now taking casting suggestions for the inevitable movie, The War of the Gulf. Here are 3 ideas. Send along your own, suggests Liz. She wants Michael J. Fox to play Pete Williams, Brian Dennehy to play Norman Schwarzkopf, and Pat Hingle to play Lieutenant General Thomas Kelly. Now, I rather think that our cast of those three characters far, far, far better, more creative and ingenious than her first three. I, of course, will play Schwarzkopf. Pete Williams, who's going to play Pete Williams in our movie? Pete Williams. They've got so many people that we think should play Pete Williams. The last one was Treat Williams, I think, is who somebody suggested. Marvin Hamlish has also been a suggestion with a nose job. And Pat Hingle for Lieutenant General Thomas Kelly. No. We're using former Philadelphia Eagles coach Buddy Ryan as General Kelly. I don't think I'll send this over. She won't understand the sarcasm. She will not understand the satire we're trying. She's doing this seriously, I'm sure. We're having fun with it. Well, maybe I'll send it over to Liz anyway. I don't know. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's another thing about the cast. I got a letter today from a man somewhere in the bowels of Arkansas who claims that Bo Snerdley says his accent is too twangy to let him on the air. He's not offended by that. He just said, since I'm too twangy to get on the air, which we don't do that, by the way. We do not keep people off the air because of their accents. We never do that. If we keep people off the air, it's only because of what they say they're going to say. Now, I have always said to you people, you must leave such things as comedy and casting of movies and coming up with update suggestions, ideas, and execution. You shouldn't try this at home. When you try it at home, you get yourself into big trouble because you do not have the restraint, the understanding of the boundaries that exist that constitute good taste in any of this. I do. I know where the boundaries of good taste happen to be. Now, this man from Arkansas wrote, this is a totally tasteless suggestion, and I'm only going to mention it to you to share with you what I have to deal with out there. It was some of these, I wouldn't laugh if I were you. I really would. I think if you laugh at this, it will show just what a base individual you are. This gentleman from Arkansas says that Mitch Snyder should be cast in our movie. He could play the dust storm in the desert. Don't laugh. I'm telling you, do not laugh. It is beneath the audience of this show to laugh at that suggestion. To suggest that a man who gave so much, including his body, to the homeless cause, would be laughed at when someone suggests that he now play a dust storm in our movie, Gulf War I. Please don't laugh. Please do not laugh. I really find it repugnant. My empathy tells me that many of you people are laughing, and I think it's horrible. We have a lot of other news, too. You know, we still have the toe sucker, the serial toe sucker from Arkansas. I don't see how we're going to get to this. You know what people are going to wish to discuss today. It could be the serial toe sucker thinks that we should cast Mitch Schneider as the sandstorm, dust storm, or whatever. But there still is some interesting news that's come out, and I have this little battle within myself that says, look, I've promised to keep you people on the cutting edge of societal evolution, and so I think that we should get into some of those things. But I know also that you want to talk about the war, and many of you want to express your pride. A New York television station has asked to come by here this afternoon to get some of your thoughts on tape, and we told them, sure, come on by. That'll happen in the next hour. Also, education is a very meaningful thing to me. I'm one of the biggest believers in it. And the National Review has just come out with a new book that has been edited by Charles Sykes and Brad Miner. Now, Charles Sykes is the editor or the author of a really great book called Prof Scam, Professors and the Demise of Higher Education. Miner is the literary editor of the National Review. So what this is the National Review College Guide to America's 50 top liberal arts schools. If you're a parent and you are looking for a good college to send your students to, your kids to, this is a book that does suggest over 50 of the top liberal arts schools in the country. It recommends schools where students come first, schools that offer a core curriculum, a sense of purpose, and a supervised, congenial campus life where teachers are dedicated to teaching rather than indoctrinating. You won't find Harvard or Stanford or Yale in this book. You will find genuinely good institutions of higher learning where the values you have attempted to instill into your kids as a parent are maintained on campus. It's going to be available at bookstores. National Review College Guide. All right, we have a quick break. We'll get to your calls when we come back. Don't go away. With half my brain tied behind my back because that's all I need in order to be fair about a Rush Limbaugh, the EIB network.
Hold it, before you go any further.
We'll get into the microphone.
Yes. Before you go any further.
Whoa, you just toppled the flag, Bo. You just toppled the flag.
Hey, hold on.
Of all days to come in here and knock the flag down.
No, the flag didn't fall.
All right.
You're not giving yourself credit on the show. Kiki De La Garza and I were both talking about this during the break. You predicted, before the war began, it would take 6 weeks from start to finish. Do you know how long it was at this?
It was 6 weeks
to the day. You also said the ground war, 7 days, 10 tops.
Mop-up job. Less than 1,000 casualties. That's what I said.
Right down the line.
Well, I wasn't going to bring that up today.
Because you didn't want to gloat.
However, why remind the people who listen to this show know that I said it? Try this, ladies and gentlemen. A conservative, don't you love that one again? This is in USA Today. A conservative Soviet newspaper Wednesday rebuked the United States for trying to bomb Iraq back to the Stone Age. From Baghdad, correspondent Viktor Filatov wrote in Sovietskaya Rossiya, the paper of the Russian Federation, that he doesn't know if there's anything left to be bombed in Baghdad. Everything was broken, damaged, ruined. What further blood do they want, these barbarians of the 20th century, he said, referring to the United States Air Force. This is typical of the Soviet Union. They ignore their own barbarism. They never even admit to it. Try 1.2 million dead Afghans during the Afghanistan-Soviet War. Try 17 million dead Ukrainians during the barbarism of Stalin. How about the atrocities that Schwarzkopf said were committed by people who are not of this human race in Kuwait City? These people are not our buddies. They are not our friends, and it would be a terrible mistake to continue investing in them our hopes for peace. We have shown we need only invest in ourselves. We need only to invest in our own people who will be able, because of instinct and because of what it means to grow up in this country, to do the right thing. And the right thing has been done. A just thing has been done. A moral thing has been done. And those of you on the protest marches in this country, and those of you who called this show yesterday in loud disagreement with the policy, how do you feel when you see tears of joy streaming down the cheeks of Kuwaitis who have been imprisoned for the last who knows how many months? They are crying. They are deadly glad to see us. Oh, my God, they're here. We love America. George Bush. How do you feel to be on such a minority wrong side in this? Your only retort is, well, they're not a democracy. They are human beings, and you people profess to care as much about human beings as you do a system. In fact, you prefer communism to any other system because you think it's more fair to human beings. Those of you on the pro-choice march, on the anti-nuke march, on the peace march, all of you people in the environmental and Earth Day parade, you're the same bunch of people. You think America is the evil on the planet. And another example here of how America has rid the planet of a true evil. And it is a source of great pride and happiness to realize that your day may have come and gone, your credibility totally shot. You can cry, you can moan, you can gloat, you can do whatever you want on the protest march. You can throw rocks at buildings that you don't own. You can obstruct decent people trying to get to work in federal buildings and try to shut them down. But in the future, nobody's going to listen. We have no requirement to listen to you. You can shout using our First Amendment all you want, but we no longer have to listen to you. and with the credibility that you have lost in this conflict, no one of any sense will ever listen to you again. And I, for one, am so damn happy about that I am proud beyond my ability to express it, not only of the people who we sent over there, but the people in this country, about whom I have written on 2 separate occasions, contributed as powerful a weapon in this nation's victory as the Patriot missile, as the M1A tank, because it was the people who supported the troops genuinely by supporting the policy, by supporting the government, by supporting the president, who rendered you, who in truth would love to see this country crumble, impotent. Go see your urologists. As an added bonus, when we get to calls on today's show, if you can tell me the name of your congressman, this would be a good test, too. If you know the name of your congressman or senator, I'll tell you how he or she voted. And my friends, in fact, you might get old John Donovan and have him start creatively working on something to remind everybody of Richard Gephardt's threat to withdraw funds from the troops. I have held this one. I've hoped that nobody would bring it up. I don't know that anybody has. Probably somebody has around this country. Tough to be unique when 240 million people live in the same place. But Richard Gephardt threatened to withdraw funds from our troops if he didn't get his way as the war was about to start. He was trying to stop any force from being used. Richard Gephardt of St. Louis. Let them make a commercial out of that. Let some good Republican strategist find Richard Gephardt actually making the statement on the House floor or whatever. Let them make a commercial out of that. If you Republicans in St. Louis want to get rid of the House Majority Leader, Richard Gephardt, simply find videotape of him refusing, or threatening, I should say, to withdraw funds from the troops. General Schwarzkopf was asked yesterday if a ceasefire would get in his way. Once again, going back to what kind of people you want making decisions in the military. He got mad, and you can see it. He said he didn't want the war to start in the first place, but he was given his orders and he carried them out. And he is the happiest guy in the world to hear that a ceasefire was ordered. We'll continue in a moment.
The following program has been pre-recorded for broadcast at this time on WABC, New York. Remember, this program was pre-recorded, so please do not attempt to call our regular phone numbers, the 800 numbers, or the 900 poll numbers at this time.
If you were feeling good yesterday, if you were pumped yesterday, you got to be on the ceiling today. You have to be higher than a kite, to be cliched. I know I am. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rush Limbaugh, proud and joyous. On the Excellence in Broadcasting Network, proud of so many people. Happily proud of so many people. 1-800-282-2882 if you're just joining us. I just completed my first ever 1-hour monologue on the EIB network and am not quite through. I have stated in the previous broadcast hour, ladies and gentlemen, that it is the intention of this program to let the people of St. Louis, Missouri first and the people of America secondarily never forget the contribution to this great effort which was made by the Senate Majority Leader Richard Gephardt, who threatened to withdraw funds from the troops if he didn't get his way on this. Never has a man been so out of touch. But I am reminded of so many things that happened during the early days of this. Congressman Ron Dellums, California, Berkeley, recently named to the House Intelligence Committee, a committee where this nation's most sensitive secrets are heard. Ron Dellums, whose aide had a love affair with Maurice Bishop, the communist leader of Grenada, before he was rendered room temperature by our forces. Ron Dellums, who has several letters praising and celebrating Fidel Castro. Ron Dellums, who, along with his friends, filed suit against George Bush to block Operation Desert Shield. Do you remember? Ron Dellums and many of his leftist liberal Congress buddies filed suit saying the president had no authority and had no right, and asked a federal court to stand in the way of President Bush. Also, Congresswoman Maxine Waters from California, part of the Ron Dellums clan. Oh, she's new to Washington. She's big in California State Assembly circles. Claimed that no African American should fight this war because it's not our war. Well, Ms. Waters, if this wasn't your war, then you have no interest in freedom, because that's what this war was about. How many of you people saw Forrest Sawyer arrive in Kuwait City last night on Nightline? How many of you saw Kuwaiti citizens running up to him, tears streaming down their cheeks? Thank you, I am free, they said. I have my freedom, I have my freedom. They were kissing a reporter. So happy. They're not a discerning group, the Kuwaitis. I, frankly, would have waited to kiss a soldier. But they kissed a reporter. Note that they were not saying, I have my peace. I have my peace. They were saying, I have my freedom. Never forget, you people, war is fought for freedom, not for peace. About this, I disagree with even one so prominent as Richard Nixon. The myths of war, very quickly, just to remind you once again, all of the things that were going to happen should you listen to the opponents of war. Our soldiers were unqualified middle-class volunteers, which wasn't fair. Mark Shields, Washington Post, on Nightline calling me a chicken hawk because I supported this volunteer force, which is not a peacetime army, said Mr. Shields, and many who agree. No, a volunteer army is never intended for peacetime. We need to reinstate the draft. Another myth. Blown to smithereens. How do you, who have been so wrong from day one on this field today, how do you feel? Do you have the courage to go on television and let them play your thoughts 5 months ago, 4 months ago, 3 months ago, 2 weeks ago? Ground war shouldn't have gone. Oh, no. Do you have the guts to explain yourself? Would you have the courage to do so? Kuwait isn't a democracy. We shouldn't go in there. The people of Kuwait are free. Our weapons wouldn't work. Sand would destroy our tanks and our Apache helicopters. Why, there were some who were so convinced that our forces couldn't survive in that climate, we shouldn't have even gone. We should disband the military, concede every war in the future, as our troops aren't good enough and our weapons aren't good enough and our mechanized divisions aren't modern enough. All Bush wanted to do was get the oil price up, and it's lower now than it was. Gasoline price is lower now than it was on August 2nd. Let sanctions work, even for a year. Somebody want to choose that option now? Troops would still be there, hunkered down. The Jordanians and Russians would still be sending Hussein weapons. The Iraqi army is supposed to be superior to ours, more committed, willing to commit suicide. The jihad, we can't compete with these people. They're more committed than we. They'll die for their cause to meet their maker. They risk their lives to join us. These brave Iraqis, against whom we had no chance, upon being taken prisoner, were shouting, George Bush! George Bush! They were not shouting Mikhail Gorbachev, Fidel Castro, or Saddam Hussein. Nor were they shouting Ted Kennedy. Nor were they shouting Ron Dellums. Nor were they shouting Joe Biden. Nor were they shouting Michael Dukakis. They were shouting George Bush. They were free. Our coalition wouldn't hold together. Oh, no. And the Arabs, they wouldn't even fight. The Arab members of the coalition, why, they wouldn't be on the front line. Oh, we can't count on them. No, they're not going to be in the discos dancing the night away. We would bear the full expense of the war. Nobody else will help us. The Japs, people said. The Krauts, people said. They'll never pay up. Well, my friends, the figures are in. The Gulf War will cost about $45 billion. The two fiscal advisors to Congress said yesterday. And it is possible that Allied contributions will pay the whole thing. If the pledges are honored, it will not cost the U.S. taxpayer a dime. Comptroller General Charles Bowser said, I don't think there's any need for U.S. taxpayers' money to be put up here. It's going to cost us a dime. And even if it did, or does, worth it. Thousands and thousands of body bags, Sam Body Bags Donaldson. Body bags would be returning. American will would crumble at the sight of the first body bag. Oh, no, we can't see body bags. In truth, my friends, had there been body bags, been great numbers, the American people would have been even angrier. Massive peace protests would break out all over the country. I have a list here of senators who voted no. I want to read the list to you. These are senators who voted no on the authorization of the use of force. From Arizona, Senator DeConcini. Arkansas, both senators voted no, Dale Bumpers and Mr. Pryor. In Colorado, Timothy Worth voted no. Connecticut, Christopher Dodd voted no. Delaware, Senator Joseph Biden voted no. Georgia, Senator Sam Nunn, who used to be one of this country's major educated men on the art of warfare and the need for it, voted no. As he attempts to gain the Democratic presidential nomination, he sacrifices his principles and is attempting now to be assumed the father of Joan Baez. Also in Georgia, Weish Fowler voted no. In Hawaii, Senator Daniel Inouye voted no, as did the other senator, Mr. Akaya. In Illinois, Senators Dixon and Simon both voted no. In Iowa, Senator Tom Harkin voted no. In Kentucky, Senator Wendell Ford voted no. In Maine, Senator George Mitchell, who thinks he's president of the United States, voted no. In Maryland, both Paul Sarbanes and Barbara Mikulski voted no. In Massachusetts, Senator Edward Kennedy and Senator John Kerry voted no, while both predicting the worst calamity to strike America in the process. In Michigan, Senators Don Regal and Carl Levin both voted no. In Minnesota, new rookie Senator, I don't know what I'm doing yet, Paul Wellstone, probably never will know what I'm doing, voted no. In Nebraska, both senators, James Exon and Bob Kerrey, who was one of the early critics, one of the early predictors of total calamity and ruin, voted no. New Jersey, Senator Bill Bradley, Senator Frank Lautenberg voted no. In New York, Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan voted no. North Carolina, Senator Terry Sanford voted no. North Dakota, both senators, Burdick and Conrad, voted no. In Ohio, both senators, Glenn Metzenbaum, voted no. Oklahoma, Senator David Boren voted no. Oregon, Senator Mark Hatfield voted no. Rhode Island, Senator Claiborne Pell voted no. South Carolina, Senator Clarence Hollings voted no. South Dakota, Senator Dashley voted no. Tennessee, Senator Jim Sasser, who daily proclaimed Ronald Reagan's budgets dead on arrival and doesn't see anything worthwhile in even Republican exhales, voted no. In Texas, Senator Lloyd Benson, another Democratic frontrunner for the VP or the presidential nomination, voted no. In Vermont, Senator Patrick Leahy, who has been all over TV rendering his opinion on what ought to happen next, how this should happen, voted no. In Washington, Senator Brock Adams voted no. In West Virginia, both senators, Robert Byrd, Jay Rockefeller, voted no. In Wisconsin, Senator Cole voted no. Democrats all voted no. If you want to know how your congressmen, there are many more of them than I have time to mention here, being that there are 435, how they voted, I'll be glad to tell you if you like to ask the question. We will come back after the break with your calls and get started. I appreciate your patience, folks. I told you, though, at the outset, have you ever felt as though you just were so consumed with so much you wanted to say that you didn't know where to begin, where to start, that it was not really organized? Well, it wasn't. I just knew that I was bursting with pride, bursting with emotion, and that I wanted to share it with you, and so I have. Your turn is next after this. Hi, this is Rush Limbaugh. I am on the cutting edge of societal evolution, keeping you there with me as long as you stay where you are. 1-800-282-2882 is the number. Our Gulf War I, the miniseries idea, has been stolen. Maybe that's a bit strong. She may not know that she's late on this. Celebrity columnist Liz Smith has asked her readers to send in their suggestions. Nobody will put together a better cast than we have put together here, so they can try. I called today. I offered my cast. They didn't seem interested, so fine. That's very good. We'll just hang in here on our own. She's only in 70 newspapers anyway. And I just got the latest count, 317 radio stations now on the EIB network. Illinois Congressman Robert Michael had this to say earlier today.
Let those who proudly boast of how many weapon systems they voted against remember that if they had had their way, Saddam Hussein would be astride the Middle East like a conqueror today.
Well, that should have gotten more applause than that. He's right. To the phones we go. Syracuse, New York. Ron, hi. Glad you waited. You're on the Rush Limbaugh program. Hello.
Hello from Syracuse, New York.
Hi.
A first-time caller, listener since WSYR put you on our station.
Thank you.
I listened yesterday and was very upset, one, with a guy that tried to describe a conservative who was really a religious nut, and people like him, I feel, are more dangerous than Saddam because they're right here in this country. But the fellow that called before, just before his call, that criticized what we were doing in Iraq, and all these people that criticized, I never heard one of them mention what the Iraqis were doing to other people, the Kuwaitis and everybody. And they always make us the bad guy. We have for years given our money, and they spit in our face.
Well, you see, it doesn't matter to them what other people do. These people are isolationists. Peace is only on a one-way street in the United States, and it's defined by them. They would also, I'm sure, say, if you had a chance to level this accusation at them, they'd say, well, look, if we hadn't gone over there and placed troops there, then they wouldn't have had to violently capture those people and punish them in Kuwait. If we'd have just let Saddam have it and then let the Arabs solve the problem, they wouldn't have done that. It's all our fault, don't you see? That's what they would say to you, because they believe it. See, that's what's really sad about this, Ron. These people are not just talking to hear their heads rattle. They really do believe that America is the focus of evil in the world. They really do.
Well, the trouble with the people is that most of them put the past out of mind, like what happened with Hitler. If he would have been stopped in the beginning, if people read all the things that went on and how they could have stopped him, history repeats itself. And I would say to all the American people right now to hold your heads high that you're an American. I would say stand proud when you hear the Star-Spangled Banner, and thank God for our boys overseas, because they did one heck of a job, and everybody was telling us how great or how good Saddam's army was, but they didn't realize how great our boys are.
Now, they did all along. See, that's the thing. Here's a very crucial fact to remember. That's what's so momentous about this. The naysayers, the protest marchers, and the Democrats in our government who criticize the apparatus of our existence called the Defense Department know fully well how capable we are, and they don't like it. The vast majority of the American people know that the people of this nation are good, decent, and oriented towards doing the right thing. And that's why liberals have such a tough time of it when the people of the nation get together and render their votes on what liberals think. If a liberal runs for the White House, he is hopelessly out of any running. Because to be a good liberal, you have to criticize the institutions of America that people hold dear. And people don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear the country trashed. Even if the country occasionally makes a mistake, they don't want to hear this nation continually beaten up by its own people. They want to go about correcting the mistake, and they want to go about living their lives as decent people, ordered by traditional family values. They don't want to listen to this garbage of, well, there's nothing wrong anymore. There are just reasons people do things. And I think that the people of America are not surprised at all at what has happened here. The vast majority of the people of America are simply euphoric and happy because what they know was possible in Vietnam has finally happened now. The demon of Vietnam has been slayed. We could have done this in Vietnam had it not been for people like Robert McNamara and Bill Moyers choosing targets.
Had we let the people in the field do what they wanted to do, I'm sure Vietnam could have been won as well. The people who fought there will tell you so, and they were the ones in the trenches to know. By the way, about the national anthem, I hate to tell you this, Whitney Houston lip-synced it at the Super Bowl. She recorded it the week previous in a Los Angeles studio. Now, the people at Arista Records are saying, oh, wait a minute. She didn't lip-sync it. She was singing it down there, just the mic was dead. It was a recording, but she was singing along. I want to come to Ms. Houston's defense. This Milli Vanilli, whatever, those screwballs, what is it, Milli Vanilli? Whatever they were doing, that's not the same thing. You see, my friends, I have experience in these matters. I used to be the man at the Kansas City Royals in charge of national anthem singers. It was a big job. It was a job of immense responsibility. Yes, I had to escort them to second base. It was the abuse. The abuse, I didn't get the big bucks for this. I didn't get big bucks, period. The abuse I would do, here I'm escorting Helen O'Connell to second base to sing the playoffs, sing the World Series, or sing the national anthem in the playoffs against the Yankees. And as I'm escorting her back in, the people behind the dugout, boy, you really got a good job in escorting women to second base. Who you escorting tomorrow at tomorrow's game? I'm really making fun of me. But the problem is, at a big stadium with sound systems, there's this thing called the delay. You sing into the microphone, oh, say, and you sing it, and you might hear it a split second later. Just enough to screw you up if you start listening to the delay. And to avoid an embarrassment for everybody involved, we required at the Royals all national anthem singers to record it in advance and lip-sync it. That's why if you've seen Tony Tennille singing at the Dodgers with headphones on, she's singing it live to avoid hearing the delay. This program supports Whitney Houston. With talent, more talent than I'll ever need, on loan from God. Rush Limbaugh serving humanity, destined for my own wing in the Museum of Broadcasting. 1-800-282-2882 if you'd like to be on the program today. I know that you are filled with pride, bursting with desire to share with the nation your thoughts on all this. And so it's your turn. Woodbridge, New Jersey. John, hi. Welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program.
Hello, Rush.
John, how are you?
Fine. Ditto's from Woodbridge.
Thank you very much.
I can't believe I got through.
Well, I'm glad you did.
So am I. What I'd like to say is that I think that when the troops come home, there should be a lot of positive things done and put on the media. One of the things that I notice, I work with a lot of young people, and their image of the military is what they grew up with when they were small children and Vietnam was going on.
Not anymore.
Well,
let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you think a Vietnam movie made today will play after this? It might. If Oliver Stone tries to do Platoon 2, I think the theater that plays it might have eggs thrown at it. I don't think it would play. I think this is going. That's what I'm saying. This is momentous. This is going to redefine so much. The Vietnam demon is gone, dead and buried. And I agree with you that positive things ought to happen. I think it will. I think the danger is going to be a bunch of freeloaders and front-runners trying to get in on the festivities when it ought to be just these men and women and their families. And let them have it to themselves. We don't need Jesse Jackson and a bunch of politicians out there welcoming, especially a bunch of people who were even against all this from the outset. And I think we can overdo the celebration if we try to concoct a bunch of staged events. Well, just let it happen. There'll be enough staged events in each local community, and that's fine, honoring the locals. But when the mass arrivals happen, just let it happen spontaneously, and it'll be a much better thing.
Oh, I agree with you on that. But my concern is that the media will present it the wrong way. I mean, they've done that throughout the entire war.
Let them. Let me tell you something. Here's why you shouldn't worry about it. The media presents it the wrong way. It is of no effect. The polls in this. Let me illustrate this. Have you ever seen the media? Have you ever seen the people of this country angrier at the media? Ever? I can't in my life. I'm 40. I cannot remember a period of time where the people were angrier at the media. And yet, look at the polls. 85, 87% support. If the media had any influence, if Peter Arnett had any influence, Saddam Hussein would have been the darling of the protest marchers. But he's so clearly a villain that not even the left in this country could adopt him as they adopted Ho Chi Minh. So don't sweat the media. It's not Nothing new. The media, let them present whatever pictures they want to. You should be comforted in the fact that it hasn't mattered, and it won't then. Steve in Augusta County, Virginia, welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program. Hello.
Thank you, Rush.
You bet.
This is surely a pleasure.
Thank you.
Toward the end of probably the most professional war ever fought, I would think.
That's a good way to phrase it.
I really believe it was. It was very professional. They did what they had to do, and that was all they did. Listen, one thing you're starting to hear right now from these protesters, they're parting shots before they crawl back into their holes and go back to their environmental issues.
Hey, Earth Day's coming up.
Yeah, well,
the Great American Meet Out, March 20th. They're not going away. It'll be the same bunch of people on the same protest march.
No, but they're going to change. They're going to change subjects. But we're bullied. You're going to hear overkill, bullies. The USA are a bunch of bullies, and we have to be ready to respond to these things.
Once again, I understand your concern about it, and a lot of people have this fear that whatever negative is said about the country somehow will find its way into some people's belief systems. And I would just take, again, the whole experience of this conflict and look at the American people's overwhelming support for it, look at the overwhelming opposition to the protesters. When you have somebody like Ron Kovic or Dr. Casey Kasem or some of these others who are saying, the United States are a bunch of bullies, we're bullies. And then the next frame, you see some Iraqis or Kuwaitis with tears streaming down their cheeks going, George Bush, George Bush. They are kissing anybody that comes across them because they're so happy that they're free. So that the little whimpering cries from the protest crowd are not going to matter. They've been rendered impotent. Let them shout. Let them scream. Don't listen. They have no right to be heard. They have all the rights in the world to say what they want to say. No right to be heard. Ignore them. Cellular call from somewhere in Pennsylvania. Tom, hi, welcome to the program.
Hi, Rush?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I've only started calling about a month ago. I called Joy a couple of times. What a great station.
Thank you.
I can't help but agree with you. You know, there's a new surge of pride. Pride in being an American, of honor and integrity, that these politicians, and I love what you said, remember who voted against. Remember all of those opportunists. I have a son in the military. He wasn't over there, but he joined, and I've been proud of him ever since he's joined. He's in his second hitch.